Welcome to A Sad Reality. This time, we'll be covering human trafficking, a problem that's overlooked, but nonetheless problematic. The United States is rife with policy issues, but one that particularly stands out is the issue of human trafficking. Across the world, human trafficking is proving itself to be a massive problem with inadequate federal attention. Though there are many shelters and homes for victims, finding and aiding victims is a difficult step to begin with. The purpose of this research project is to help spread awareness about sex trafficking while asking for the issue to receive a greater amount of federal attention. For those who may not be aware, human trafficking is when someone is kidnapped, typically in a violent and dangerous manner, and often sold off as if they're an object. The Human Trafficking Hotline is an organization that hopes to aid and support victims of the aforementioned crime. The website defines human trafficking as follows. Quote, human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery in which traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to control victims for the purpose of engaging in commercial sex acts or labor services against his or her will. The website's jarring wording, modern-day slavery, serves as a reminder of the gravity this issue has. Of course, slavery is commonly believed to have been among the worst issues in American history. The above quote surmises this topic well. It is important to note that there are many ways, as listed before, that traffickers use to take control over the lives of other individuals. The provided definition is also notably close to the definition of slavery, though the methods by which slaves were acquired was usually different. When questions regarding human trafficking are raised, it is important to understand that within the above definition are two major categories of human trafficking, which are known as sex trafficking and labor trafficking respectively. Sex trafficking is the most common form of human trafficking by far, with at least 5 times as many reported cases as labor trafficking in the United States in 2016. Worth noting is that both sex trafficking and labor trafficking are excessively brutal. We find that human trafficking is by far the largest in California, but that's an unsurprising figure considering its large population. Notably, Washington makes this list with 144 victims reported in 2016. By raising awareness about this issue, political leaders might demonstrate that they care about the citizens of the United States who have experienced being trafficked, or, on a grander scale, the well-being of the American citizenry. The global trafficking trade has been valued as high as $32 billion. By all accounts, $32 billion is a massive figure and indicates that the modern slave trade is alive and well. Because this issue extends so far beyond the borders of the United States, many might question what the nation can do to impact the trade of such massive scale. It seems reasonable, however, to suggest that we advance anti-trafficking measures within our own borders before, if at all, extending to the global trafficking trade. Despite the prevalence of human trafficking, however, the problem is often overlooked to the point of many victims going without help entirely. Because of this, one might expect a massive uproar surrounding this issue, particularly in the United States. Unfortunately, there are legally ingrained reasons that human trafficking cases have a tendency to be overlooked, as summarized by the following quote from Immigration Impact. Quote, even if the law enforcement officials are successful in identifying victims, state prosecutors face huge difficulties in pursuing cases. Lack of legal guidance and precedent was continually cited as a major deterrent in prosecuting cases using state trafficking statuses. Prosecutors who did accept the cases were more likely to prosecute using existing laws that they were familiar with, often in fear of losing high-profile cases. Prosecutors also face similar problems with victim cooperation. An overwhelming amount of prosecutors felt that labor trafficking cases should be prosecuted at the federal level, mostly due to the likely undocumented status of the victim. End quote. Despite largely positive intentions, the difficulty in prosecuting human trafficking cases has led to many being ignored outright. This is a problem with the legal system, and, if no change occurs, it will persist. As a means of gauging public opinion regarding human trafficking, 2 people will be interviewed as a part of this podcast. It should be interesting to see what the public knows regarding human trafficking, as it is public knowledge that can make a difference. Thank you for joining me today. What's your name?
My name's Judy. Thank you for having me.
So Judy, what do you know about human trafficking?
Not much, to be honest.
It seems that many Americans are in the same boat, although human trafficking globally is a $32 billion industry.
Wow, that is a lot of money.
I agree, and all of that money is spent in the name of kidnapping, forcing people to do things against their will. Given this, you might expect that the issue would have a massive amount of federal attention, at least in the United States, but it doesn't.
So what exactly is human trafficking?
Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery in which traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to control victims for the purpose of engaging in commercial sex acts or labor services against his or her will.
Wow, I had no idea.
That's alright, not many people do, and that's why I'm trying to raise awareness. In any case, thank you for joining me, Junie.
Yeah.
After that telling interview, I decided to find someone else, and I thought maybe they would have a different perspective. This is the result. Hi, thank you for joining me. What's your name?
My name is B.
Nice to meet you, B. So what do you know about human trafficking?
I know that it's a big issue that's not really being addressed.
I agree, which is why myself and many others are pushing to raise awareness. Have you or anyone you know experienced human trafficking?
Yes, actually, I have.
Okay. Did it influence you or someone that you know?
It was me.
Would you feel comfortable telling us more about that?
Well, I was picked up when I was 13 in California by 3 guys. I was stranded, hungry, and alone. They promised to feed me and get me back to Oregon. Instead, I was taken somewhere near Seattle, Washington, where I was beaten horribly and sent to the street to make the money. Eventually, I came across an older man who honestly probably saved my life. I told him I was desperate to get home. I was scared. He must have picked up the urgency of my situation. He took me straight away to get food and bought me a bus ticket home.
Wow. I can't imagine what that must have been like. I'm sorry to hear that you had to experience that. Thank you for joining me, B. After having had those 2 interviews, I realized how varied the thoughts on this matter were. Some people had experienced it firsthand, while others didn't even know what it was. It seems that sometimes the trafficking doesn't seem to be a problem to people until they've experienced it. In any case, I learned a lot from these interviews, and I hope others can learn from them as well. After this, I truly began to realize the gravity of the situation. Human trafficking is no small matter. It influences people's lives, but not in any small number. People's lives change. And they change for the worse in 1,000 ways. It's an emotional thing. It's a thing that has killed, hurt, and ruined people. Anger, sadness, despair, fear, hopelessness. These are all concepts we presume to understand. We are taught, even before the age of kindergarten, how to differentiate between our emotions. We know the difference between happy and sad. We know what these are. But given the scope of human emotion, that we lead lives of luxury and comfort, at least compared to our ancestors, do we really understand? For many people, the darkness of the human mind seems the only reality. Because when people are taken from their homes, from what they know, people can break. Human trafficking is a billion-dollar industry, and yet, despite the industry's massive scale, no questions about it were asked in the presidential debate in the United States. It seems that eyes have shifted from human trafficking, that we don't care. But if our understanding of human emotion is so great, shouldn't we empathize? A better question might be, do we empathize? It seems, given the lack of awareness towards people who are being kidnapped, made into slaves, into objects, that we don't care. We might assert that we do, but given our actions, do we really? Do our actions speak louder than our words? Because if they do, it seems that we are not empathizing. And if we aren't empathizing with people who must live in the worst of conditions, are we humane? If we simply stand by and allow human trafficking to happen, How empathetic could we possibly be? How good could we possibly be? How can we call ourselves good if we do nothing to help? Helping is not a difficult feat. It can be the smallest act of raising awareness or keeping out a sharp eye. Anyone can help. And by helping, you could save a life.